Well, well. Hello, my friend. I am CharLee Simons, talking about two things you're never supposed to talk about: politics and religion, here on Do Not Talk. Our new website, charliesimons.com, spelled just like you see my name down right here, just like that. Boom. CharLee Simons, all one word, .com. Got to spell it right, two E's. My name's Charles Lee. That's why I spell it that way. Started when I was a kid, just kind of stuck. So charliesimons.com. You want to support the show financially. You want to see some of the things that you don't necessarily see here on Facebook and YouTube, where we're live right now, and on rumble.com/do-not-talk. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your help. Thank you for sharing these shows. That really helps us grow tremendously. Over 8,000, almost 8,500 followers on my Facebook page, and 5,000 friends on top of that. And the YouTube channel is growing at CharLee Simons. So it's been fun. It's been really fun. And thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity. Thank you for this show. Thank you for letting it grow and letting other people see other points of view that they're not seeing in the media. Father, please bless that. Please bless these efforts. In your name, Christ Jesus, let it be an encouragement to others and hopefully a help with information they don't get anywhere else. Thank you, Father, for this alternative media that I believe you've blessed us with as a way to communicate with each other when so much in the corporate world is doing the enemy's work just as quickly as possible, for his time is short. Please bless this time, bless this show in your name, Christ Jesus. Amen and amen. Nice hair. All right, here we go. Frank Lissay is going to be my guest. He's been on before. He's always fun to talk to, and author of Climate and Media. I'll just ask him about it. What is the name of your book again, Frank? Hello.
Hi, it's Climate and Energy Lies, available on Amazon. Dangerous, destructive. They're dangerous and destructive and unnecessary.
Dangerous, destructive, and unnecessary. And not an accident, I believe. Not an accident at all. The left knows that the best way to control people and to get mass hysteria going to where you can do things, as the left themselves say, never let a good tragedy go to waste, right? That's what they do. They create fear. They create a platform of fear, and they started with children, warning us about the world's going to end in 10 years. 10 years. Of course, that was 30 years ago. They were saying the world is going to end in 10 years. And they just keep throwing that lie out over and over and over again. And people are afraid. People are afraid because that's all they see. That's all they know. And then somebody like you comes along and serving in public office, and writing great books and doing speaking engagements, saying, wait a minute, stop looking at that shiny object over there and start looking at what they're doing and what their purpose is and why they're doing all this. What's your thought, Frank? Why would they do all this? What is the ultimate goal?
Well, they're lying to us on purpose. They're first lying to us about the climate. We have no climate emergency. CO2 is good for us. It's plant food. They add it to greenhouses to make plants grow better. Worldwide crop harvest, that's the total amount harvested, and the yields, how much comes from each acre of land, have just continued to grow and continue to grow. The world, according to NASA, our space agency, looking at it, satellites from the Earth the world's 35% greenner than it was 40 years ago. They attribute that to 70% of that greening growth, natural, not with man helping, natural to the additional CO2. So CO2 is actually a benefit, but they've turned it on its head. Right now, we're exhaling CO2. Every human does. And we need to inhale it. People don't know this. Just like we have to inhale oxygen, we have to inhale CO2 as well in trace amounts. It's a very tiny part of the atmosphere, but we need it or we die. So it's a gas of life. It's part of the circle of life, but they turn it on its head to tell us it's bad so that they can limit it. That's why they've done that. They've done that to limit it. And it supports a great big junket. Every year, the climate nistas from around the world on the government's dime and private sector money and go and
There it is.
travel someplace funny.
There it is.
And,
Always
they
comes
ship in
down to
all their
money, doesn't it?
food. Yeah,
Money
all
and
that money.
control.
Ultimately, it's about money, power, and control. And really about control is the big
Mhm.
part of it. And they fly to these big junkets. They, we spend billions and billions of dollars to send to corrupt scientists. And maybe some of them aren't corrupt, but if they find things that don't fit the narrative, they lose their funding. So
They're removed.
to, yeah, they have to say, CO2 is bad and more of it's going to be even badder. And the more crazy things they can say that scare people, the more money they get. I mean, that is the bottom line of it. They've corrupted the science of it. And so that's part of it. But why? So they can drive bad energy policy, making our energy expensive and limited. And then they can drive, and they're now attacking our food supply in the name of climate. And there's zero scientific reason at all to limit methane, which comes from cows. Cows eat grass, then they ferment it. It's interesting, kind of, to me, it's really interesting. I guess I geek out on all this stuff, but they ferment it to make methane, also called natural gas. So they make natural gas naturally, and they don't like that. That's bad. And they've even invented this thing called Bovaer, and now it's getting pushed back because it's making cows sick. Oh, gee, figure you're going to put something in the cow's feed to reduce the methane, the natural methane from fermenting their foods by 35%. And it's going to be good for the cow. Well, no, now they're finding out the cows get sick and the cows don't want to eat it. They're refusing to eat this stuff, probably because it makes their tummy feel bad. And they go, hey, this is bad. But it was supposed to be a wonderful thing. So they're attacking our food supply. They're also attacking nitrous oxide, fertilizers. Half the 8 billion people in the world eat because of nitrogen fertilizers. We make it from natural gas. Again, the thing the cows make to make ammonia that they turn into nitrogen fertilizer that we put on the ground that makes the plants grow even better, feeds more people. That's bad. And when even the basic facts, and that's the other parts that there's so much that are outright lies, and then there are so much kind of hidden lies. For instance, I ask people, and maybe we should let them hang for just a few minutes on this. And I know, CharLee, you know this answer, but what's the most important, abundant, impactful greenhouse gas? And it's not what you think, folks. It's not what you've been told every day. And we'll come back to that just for fun. And then I'll tell you how much of that is in proportion to the other greenhouse gases that are supposed to cause disaster, but they're actually making the world a better place. It's about control. And they have these things called, and you should look at them because, and they buried it now once they were outed on this. They're called C40 cities. And they lay out the agenda. They're connected with the World Economic Forum.
There it is.
With the whole left cabal.
15-minute smart cities.
Yeah, so 15 minutes, that's part of it. C40 cities, 15-minute cities. And I didn't fully understand it. Why 15-minute cities? They sound kind of good on the surface. And that's what they do, the good marketing, all this stuff. But the idea of 15-minute cities, and they're actually implementing them in some cities in Europe, like Oxford. They're trying to do this in London. And the idea is they're going to take a city and they're going to divide it up into 15-minute cities. And then they're going to limit you to drive. You can't drive out of the city, but only 100 times a year. Well, think about that. That's only a third of the year. What if grandma or your job or your daycare is across the border of that 15-minute city? Well, you got a problem. And they want to, in the other cities they're putting this in, you have to pay a $70 fine if you pass this. And then it requires them, what they're doing in London, and they're having big pushback because regular people dressed in black with masks that they introduced during the CO2 scare are going up and they're taking down these cameras. Why? They want to put cameras up everywhere to record your cars to know when you've left your 15-minute city. And in China, they actually have turnstiles and controls that you can't drive through unless your app says it's okay. So they control them that way too. So first they want to isolate us in these 15-minute cities. And they say, well, everything you'll need is in the 15-minute city. Your job, your living, your life, your grocery store, your park, your museum, your whatever, everything.
We've supplied everything for you. You don't need to go anywhere.
Right.
You'll own nothing.
You don't need to go anywhere. And if you do, you can always do what we're doing right now. You can Zoom, Skype, use technology. So you can communicate. You can't get in the same room with the people that you love and know about, but you can communicate them and see them on TV. So it'll be okay. But the idea is to get you to get used to that and then do that. and then they can shut off the communication outside your 15-minute city and completely isolate you. I've seen some dystopian shows that I've watched that are really interesting, that's what the aliens do when they invade, is they lock people in little areas and then stop you from communicating from everyone else. And then they can feed you what you're supposed to think and see and believe, and make you very frightened about what's up there and completely unknowledgeable. So you don't know even what's going on outside your 15-minute city. This is
Now,
ultimately part of their goal.
for anybody who thinks he's just talking about aliens taking over cities right now, this guy's crazy. He's talking about science fiction kind of crap. This is these people, and I call it their little Star Trek utopia. That's what they're striving for. That's what they're pushing for. And they will do everything they can to coerce and force us into living the way they want us to live, for the ultimate goal of just one world government control. This is so demonic. No, there's no aliens that are controlling cities. Might be demonic people controlling cities. Like our governor here in California, Frank. Have you seen Governor Hairdo's little comment as to why this high-speed rail is so very important to the state of California?
Well,
Watch,
money's just a, oh, go ahead.
yeah, watch this.
I don't know if you can hear it, but I can't hear it. I'm not sure if you're seeing me. I can see me, but I'm not seeing the clip.
Not yet, because I messed up. I hit the wrong button.
Oh, that happens. Well, we'll let you figure that out and pop it up whenever you figure it out. But the basis of it is like lefties in Europe, and there's so much of the lefties they like what Europe does. We should have it. Now they have very densely populated cities, and they have very densely penetration of public transportation, and people are very used to it. And it does kind of work for many Europeans. Many of them don't even have cars, and it kind of works for them. We're very spread out. We're a very big nation. And, they want to put high speed in Wisconsin. And you look at it, and I've tried to use it multiple times, actually. And also just to see the country. I've driven across the country multiple times. I think it's great to see how big and large our country is. So when the crazy lefties tell us we're running out of the earth, they obviously haven't driven across just our country, let alone the world, and traveled the world. But there's a lot of open space. But you take it from one place to another, and then you got to drive to wherever you get dropped off. Then you got to spend more time than if you drove yourself, and it costs more, and it's subsidized with tax dollars. And then when you get there, you still got to rent some type of taxi or Uber or Lyft to get you around. I mean, it's just a whole bunch of added expense. And every time I've looked at it, and I looked at it in California once to take my wife and my son and I, we had a meeting and visit some relatives in Los Angeles area. And we had a meeting down in San Diego that I wanted to go to. And I said, hey, rather than rent a car and pay for the gas and then pay for the parking at the hotel, let's take a nice little trip and take the train. And I looked into it. It was 3 times more expensive to take the train for 3 of us than it was to rent a car, pay for the gas, and pay for the parking. I was like, well, that's dumb. And it took more time than just driving, even in LA traffic. So I'm like, well, that's just dumb. I'm not doing that. As much as I would have liked to, it would have been nice. It would have been pleasant with my wife and kids, kind of little, I wouldn't have to drive, but we were in the car. So that was one experience. I also looked at it to go from Wisconsin, where I live, in Milwaukee, to New York. I had a conference I wanted to go to in New York, and I thought, hey, I could go by myself, or I could take the kids and we could see the world, and it might be kind of fun. Way more expensive than taking an airplane and then Ubering around once I got there. So, and it took like 2.5 days to get from Milwaukee to New York. I'm like, well, that's nutty. I'm not doing that. So this is what we're kind of really talking about. Well, high speed might be different. They tell us, probably not, but they tell us that. But, in California, they said, first off, it only costs you $30 billion. It's just $30 billion. Hey, it's just money.
Initially, it's now ballooned up to 170 billion.
And what I find even better is this, the craziness of better, I guess, worse. I mean, the craziness of it. They've spent $16 billion and have not constructed a single iota of anything on $16 billion worth of spending. It's
Who has spent 15 billion?
California. California.
No, no, no. It's
No,
170.
that's the total cost if they build it is 170. They've already spent $16 billion planning, talking about it, buying some right of way, maybe. I don't know if they even bought that. They've spent $16 billion on nothing. There's nothing there. They've done nothing. I, and to me, if you
Hmm.
spend $16 billion, you could have a rail or two or 15 minutes worth. I mean, really? It's just amazing.
It's insane, and it's continuing because people keep voting for goofballs who are championing this. In California, I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. We have millions of illegals now voting because of the motor voter law that Jerry Brown, the governor before Governor Hairdo, passed this whole thing about first we're going to let illegals have legal driver's licenses, and that doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? And then along comes the motor voter law. Oh, by the way, if you have a driver's license, you're registered to vote.
Yeah, we don't.
But you illegals aren't supposed to.
Yeah,
Wink,
we don't
wink.
care if you're illegal or not here, or if you're a citizen. We'll just give you a driver's license, and then you can vote. Well, and Doge, and as much as the left has vilified Doge and hidden what they're actually finding, under the Biden regime in the last 4 years, they gave Social Security numbers to about 4 to 5 million that we know of, 4 to 5 million illegals. And many of
Yes.
them have gotten driver's license. They just did some sampling. So they didn't run all 4 million of them, but they did some sampling. And they found out that they have gotten driver's licenses and that some of them have been
And
voting.
Social Security payments every month.
And they're getting Social Security and Medicare, and they're getting Medicaid. Yeah, they're getting our money that we're broke. We're adding to our $37 trillion national debt that causes inflation, folks. Why it should matter to you and me is it causes inflation. When the government spends money they don't have, it causes inflation. And then we have almost $1 trillion a year in interest payments. So we got to pay that too. We're spending a couple $1 trillion more than we're taking in. So that's unsustainable. We will go bankrupt, just like a family who does that will go bankrupt, or a business. And that we can't keep that up. So we've got to cut back. And the best place to cut back is all the stupid waste and giving money to foreigners who are here illegally. It's just bonkers.
It is crazy. It is crazy, and not by accident.
No, this is on purpose.
I think the ultimate goal is to actually, because California being such a powerhouse financially, and supplying so much for, no matter what happens, in the state of California, it will affect the rest of the nation. It does. We've seen it happen again and again and again with financial collapse and stupid things happening and ridiculous bills being passed. Next thing you know, other states are doing the same and following suit, the real blue ones especially. And it is crazy what's happening because California is right there. We are on financial collapse. They passed a law that our own state cannot declare bankruptcy. That's a good trick. So they just default.
California is on the edge, and an energy policy driven by climate ideology in California is a great lesson in stupidity in this area. Is California has a lot of oil and natural gas reserves, huge amounts of oil. You now import you could harvest it all within California. And if you did, the kind of the industry standard is 17 to 20% gets paid to the owner of the land, whether the land's the state, the federal government, or a local owner. You get 20%, just use 20%, it's easy, but it's right in there, 17 to 20%. So, and use easy numbers right now, it's about $60, $70 a barrel, but let's just say it's $100 a barrel. If you own land and you're getting, and they're taking, say, 100 barrels of oil out, you get $20 per barrel, every barrel they take out. That goes in your pocket. You spend that money in California. You pay California taxes on that money. And everybody's better off. And you have more oil right there. But no, California has all kinds of restrictive rules. And you're now importing from the Middle East, shipped across the whole world, oil. And then you were processing the oil in California, but those evil oil companies and processing and refineries, we hate those too. So they're closing them down. The private companies are saying, you know what, you got all these restrictive rules. You want me to pay taxes, extra taxes, all this extra garbage.
Chevron's gone. Chevron moved to
Yeah, we're closing
Texas. The
down.
entire operation moved to
Yeah.
Texas out of
We're going to go
California.
where it's interesting. So now Chevron, for instance, was taking that oil that was coming shipped across the ocean from the Middle East, and they were refining it right in California and then selling it right there. But now they've closed it down because, it's just stupid policies by your government that you guys keep electing. And then they're going to
Yep.
process that oil in Texas and ship it back to California. That's got to be cheaper. Got to be cheaper. You can't make this stuff up, but that's what California is doing right now. And folks, if there's ever a hot war with China, which could happen, the oil from the Middle East will stop flowing. And there are no pipelines to ship that Texas and Oklahoma and New Mexico oil from there to California. It'll come on trucks, but it'll get really, really expensive. It's really interesting, folks, but that's very likely to be your future.
Yeah. We're not ready. We're in trouble. Even our national reserves of oil were depleted by at least half by Biden, all in the interest of keeping fuel prices down, which was
Well, it's for the midterm elections and his
amazing.
election. He did it for the midterm elections, politics, wasted our resources,
Yep.
and then he did it again to try to help Kamala Harris as well get elected. I mean, this is so wrong. These things are so wrong, and it leaves us in a vulnerable position, people. It leaves us.
It's all political. The reason why our fuel prices are now at $5 a gallon and more over in the Bay Area this past weekend, I saw over $6 a gallon, is all because of taxes. So that's not an accident either. We had a chance in 2008 or 2018 rather to cancel that and to get rid of that with Prop 6. We blew that. Now they can raise fuel taxes and registration on vehicles anytime they want. Doesn't have to come to a vote or anything. They decide they want to raise it. They do. They're doing it because two reasons. One, they're broke. The other one is it makes Trump look bad. Trump is lowering fuel prices are happening right now across the nation, but here in California, they're going higher. And they were already the highest in the nation, and it's all taxes. But people are so many stupid people here go, oh, I thought Trump was supposed to bring down fuel prices. Look at them. They're all expensive. And how about those eggs? Eggs also, the rest of the nation are going down. But here, due to taxes, they're still staying very ridiculously high, $11, $12 a dozen.
I just, on those three topics here, I know I'm in flyover country in Wisconsin, and but I filled up my gas tank yesterday and paid $2.79 a gallon for my gas. And yesterday, some places it's $3, but I found a place for $2.79. And I'm going to register my car. I just got notice for that for the annual registration for my car. They might up it a little bit in our upcoming budget. They're negotiating, and it'll come in July. So I think I'm going to pay it before they might up it a little bit. But it's $85. It's $85 to register my car, just so you know that. And now eggs are expensive, but we like to buy the really good ones, the pasture raised eggs, not just the regular ones. So we're paying $6, $6 to $7 a thing, but that's for the regular ones are around. I bought some regular ones at Costco just for baking and stuff, and it was $5 for 18. $5 for 18 at Costco.
We're being priced out of our own state, and it's all to make a political statement and to rescue out the horrific policies that have put us in this right here on the brink of financial collapse.
You got to vote different. You got to put different people in. You got to. That's the only way it's going to change for you.
Exactly right. So tell me about your book. What can we expect from it? How's it doing?
It's good. I'm getting some sales. It continues to go on. People are finding more about it. It's got great reviews. People who do read it really enjoy it because it's got a lot of graphs, sources, and really explains all the various issues of in depth of how you're being lied to about both climate, then about energy, what wind and solar are not cheaper. The more you add, the more cost it's going to cost you. But everywhere in the world, Californians are, and you'll hear dig on California again, you're paying double the average electric rates of the United States, double, and it's getting worse faster. Everywhere it's going up because everywhere they're adding a little wind and solar, it goes up, but it's going up faster than anywhere else because you're up farther along the crazy train. And in Germany and the United Kingdom and Denmark, where they're farther along than California even is, they're paying 4 times more than the average American. And they're causing deindustrialization. Companies that use a lot, and data centers. Why would a data center want to go there and use a lot of electricity and pay 4 times more than here? The same thing with manufacturing. They're leaving and they're laying people off. I mean, the cycle is, but they're so nutty there, like Californians, that they're just doubling down. They're going to keep this up. It's not any of that. No, that's not what's really happening here. I
And
don't
they
know. It's
get to
Trump.
put the focus of blame on the current president. They have stupid people who believe it. Oh, I thought Trump was supposed to fix fuel prices. Well, what a great job there. I'm paying even more. It's your state. It's the taxes that they're putting on. Close to $2 per gallon just in gasoline tax.
Well, and it isn't only gasoline tax in California. You've got transfer payment taxes that they call, I don't know, carbon. They don't call them taxes, but what they're being used for is to subsidize the EV industry and the hydrogen industry. And your trucking companies have to pay that too. So everything they ship in that you buy to eat or watch or do, clothes that you wear, all cost a bit more, because when it comes to California, they charge more for the fuel that comes in. Of course, they try to avoid it, but I think California doesn't let you do that either. Fill up on the border, you got to pay your fuel tax even as you drive through, even if you bought it in another state. So they add all this other cost on, and there's regulatory cost built into it too. So I'm not that familiar with all those little things, but they end up costing more just to transport the gas, hold the gas, and put it in your car, because they have all kinds of little things for the climate that really makes no difference whatsoever, but they have it.
Electric and all electric is a lie. There's nothing clean about it. It's horrific the way they're raping the earth and using child labor in other countries to mine these materials for all your batteries. It's a joke. Say what you will about Elon Musk and Tesla, and I think it's ridiculous what these clowns are doing to people who own Tesla vehicles. It's just insane, especially since they were worshiping him just a year ago, and the audacity of continuing to say all electric is going to save everything is just stupid. People are putting no thought process into this. But you mentioned a form of combustion earlier that I'd love to get your thoughts on, and that is hydrogen. See, if we could find a more efficient way and a cleaner way, and natural gas is extraordinary and very plentiful, especially here in California, like you were talking about, very plentiful, but they're shutting that down. Very clean way of making a combustion engine powering on natural gas, but they're not doing that, propane, butane. But hydrogen, is hydrogen an answer? Is that a good possibility in your mind?
Oh my goodness. Like electricity in batteries, hydrogen has to be made by something else. They're now discovering maybe, and they call it white hydrogen, that could be mined out of the earth like oil and natural gas. They haven't found any that's really pure and harvestable, but they're searching for it. And that's called white hydrogen. If they could find white hydrogen and harvest it at a reasonable cost, then it could make sense. It would be a game changer, actually, if we could find it. But they probably wouldn't like that either, because we're taking it out of Mother Earth. We're actually going to use it, and it'd be like natural gas and coal. I mean, coal and oil. I mean, really? No, we have to make hydrogen now. In California under Biden, it was given this designation as a hydrogen hub. So we're going to spend I think Trump's going to end this, and thank goodness, $9.5 billion of federal money to encourage green hydrogen. Now, I spent countless hours, and now the scientific pages and things, and I copied them, by the way, so I still have them, because you got to do that because Google's in on it. See,
they will
Google
take
and
them
YouTube
down.
are in on it. They take things down that aren't fitting the narrative. So what I found out about hydrogen, because it's hyped all the time, and regular people and even conservatives are buying into it because it sounds good on the surface, especially with the propaganda and marketing.
That's why I asked, because it sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds good until you find out. Here are the basic facts of hydrogen. In order to make green hydrogen or any hydrogen, right now, there's about, I think about 100 million tons of hydrogen made out of, it's first made into ammonia and then hydrogen, and then it turns into nitrogen fertilizers. It's made with natural gas. So they take a natural gas molecule, CH4, so it's 4 hydrogen molecules. They split it. It creates carbon dioxide, hated, bad molecule, but we talked about that. It's really a good molecule, but they turn it up on its head. And then that's how they make hydrogen today. That's the cheapest way to make it, but it's still, you're converting perfectly good natural gas, as you talked about. You can perfectly use it. We have CNG gas stations. We have CNG vehicles, skid steers, trucks, cars. So we already have CNG. We have the infrastructure to support it, and it works, and it's clean. So we already have that. So, and you can't make, that's brown hydrogen. It's bad hydrogen when you make it from natural gas. Bad, bad, bad. Then they fold people with blue hydrogen. I mean, this is the hydrogen, the rainbow colors. No wonder they like it. It's the rainbow colors of hydrogen. I never just thought of that now. So you got the rainbow colors of hydrogen. So I'm telling you the different ones. So brown hydrogen is bad because that's made from natural gas. Bad, bad, bad. Well, but it could be made into blue hydrogen if you just did that carbon capture thing. And you make brown hydrogen, capture the carbon and do something like stick it in the ground somewhere. But nobody's ever done that at scale. But that sounds good. And that could be blue hydrogen. That'd be okay. But why would you want to do that and have all the expense of taking perfectly good natural gas, turning it into hydrogen, and then capturing the carbon, and then all the other dumb stuff you got to do with hydrogen, because I can get to that for a second. So now you got green hydrogen. That's what they're all about. Green hydrogen. Oh, it's going to be the savior of all of us because it's good. Okay, to make green hydrogen, you start with water. But you need 9 times more water. You need 13 times more water because you got to purify the water. It's got to be pure water. So you take 13 times more water, and then purify it. You got 9 times more water than the hydrogen you're going to yield. And a kilo, 2.2 pounds of hydrogen, because that's how they measure it, has about the same amount of energy as a gallon of gas. So you got about 2 pounds of hydrogen gives you about the energy of a gallon of gas. So it's not a bad trade-off. Gas is heavy. So now you take that water that you got. You could use desalinated water, but Californians hate that too, because somehow adding that salt back into the Pacific Ocean that's so big will harm the ocean. That's nutty talk, folks. Just as a side, Tampa Bay gets nearly all their water from desalination, and they dump it back into a much smaller body of water, and they're doing just fine. But that's a different story. So if you did desalinate water, that costs extra. So now you take this purified water and now you heat it to 2000 degrees. Then you electrocute it. Both of those take a lot of power. Now you've cracked the molecule. You got a hydrogen and you got an oxygen. So the oxygen goes into the air and that's fine. You take the hydrogen, now you got it and you got to capture it. Hydrogen is the smallest molecule. It's absolutely tiny. It loves to escape. It's just a little escaper and it's tiny. So now you take it and you have to freeze it to almost absolute zero. Well, but it's not frozen. It's liquefied. So I just misspoke with it. It's not frozen. You liquefy it by freezing it to almost absolute zero, 460 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. So you took it from 2000 degrees above zero to 460 below zero. Now you got liquid hydrogen. But that's not good enough because that liquid hydrogen has 1/10 the energy of natural gas. So you got 1/10. So now you got to compress it to 10,000 PSI. That's 3 times the average scuba tank and 3 times the average amount of what we compress natural gas, CNG.
And highly flammable.
Oh, highly flammable. If hydrogen, which loves to escape again because it's the smallest molecule, if it escapes in a room or in a warehouse or even a canopy under trees, it goes up in a great big boom. So you got to put it now in those containers. Now you can't put it in pipelines. None of the pipelines that we exist can handle hydrogen because can't hold it. It escapes through the cracks. It embrittles metal, all metal except for aluminum. And aluminum, you really can't compress it to 10,000 PSI. It's just too weak. So we don't have any infrastructure at all to do that. And you got to put it in tanks or things to hold it into. We have no infrastructure for any of that. And I'd suggest if it ever became popular and you started putting it in trucks with these tanks, trucks and cars, the first time you have a great big boom like the Hindenburg, those who studied history, I'm too young for that even, But the Hindenburg was, people used to fly in these great big helium balloons. They were really cool. Hydrogen, I'm sorry, they did helium too, but hydrogen balloons. And it blew up in a great big fireball. That was the end of it. Nobody wanted to ride on them anymore. It collapsed. That's what will happen with this if we actually get infrastructure, because it will go boom. There's no doubt about it. It's going to go boom. Okay, so now you've got this liquid, super chilled stuff. It gets better. So the reason you're doing this with green hydrogen is you got to do this industrial process that needs to run 24/7. Heat it up, chill it down, compress it. It's got to run all the time. You can't turn it on when the sun comes up high enough at 8 o'clock in the morning and turn it off at 5. No, you got to run it all the time. You can't turn it on when the wind starts blowing and turn it off when the wind stops. So you got to run it all the time. So you got to have something to make it, to produce it and power it when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining. First of all, you have to have enough wind and solar to power it in the first place. So once you have that, and they're building one, not only in Southern California where you're short on water, but they're building one in the desert of Utah that gets 2% of their electricity from wind and solar. So somehow they're going to make green hydrogen with 2% electricity somehow. And that process I talked about costs you 40% of the energy. So you get 60% of the energy left over after you did all the things you said. And it doesn't count any of the extraneous other costs that you have to do, or the desalination, or even purifying that water. That's simply the energy taken to do the things I said. All right, so now you lost 40%. Now the concept is you're going to take that hydrogen and store it in large volumes under salt domes in the earth. So you're going to make a very big salt dome, and then you're going to stick it down there. And when you do that, you're going to lose another 10 to 20%, but that doesn't matter. So you stick it down there. And then when you pull it back out, you're going to lose some too, because it's so small, it escapes. But that's another part. So now the idea is to use second generation hydrogen. So you create it, that's your first generation, you stick it in the ground, and then you go, oops, the wind stopped. All right, we'll take it out of the ground and we'll burn it. Nobody.
Oh, you froze up. Oh, no. Oh, shoot. Ah, dang it. Oh, man. Let's just wait a second. He'll be back. Oh, shoot. There you go.
Okay. It just gets better and better. So
the wind stops. So now you have to bring it back out of the ground.
Yeah, that's right. So now when the wind stops or the sun sets, you pull it back out of the ground that you've made.
Because you're powering the whole hydrogen plant with wind and solar power.
Right. Well, some of the time. Some of the time you are. So when you're not, you're going to use the hydrogen you just created to do it again. Okay, remember, you lose like 10% when you stick it in and 10% when you pull it out. Then you're going to burn it again, which takes 40% of the energy to do the whole thing again. So you have zero net energy at the end of second generation hydrogen production. This is what they mean by a circular economy. It's obvious. It's completely circular. There's nothing left. It disappeared. It's crazy world. And this is all for talking
That is the best, most intricate explanation I've heard of hydrogen power ever. Well done.
It's just a talking point, folks, because they got to have an answer.
And the ludicrousy of it all is as good. Coming back around to propane or butane, natural gas, plentiful, especially in California, easy to get out, easy to extract, much easier to store and transport.
It works.
But no, that's not good enough. And it burns so clean, it has almost zero emissions coming out of an engine that's burning natural gas.
Well, no.
And that's an easy retrofit too, because I have a buddy who builds, rebuilds classic, antique cars. And he always powers with propane or butane. And it's an easy retrofit to get any gas engine burning clean natural gas. It's an easy, smart, quick solution if you don't want to be burning fossil fuels, as they love to keep calling it.
I have to have one small little correction in what you said, is that burning natural gas, all the things you said about conversion are great. And you should have natural gas buses, folks. Your school districts, electric buses are just plain crazy world. And they're 4 times more expensive. They break down often.
Stupid.
They can't go out, and they have to come back and get charged up and then go back out again. I mean, it's not. And then there's going to be no resale. And the reason there's no resale is after they serve their 10 to 12 years, about half or more are sold in third world countries. Third world countries don't have electricity. There'll be no market for them. So you spend 4 times
That's going to
more.
happen to all these people who've been buying all these electric vehicles. You're not going to be able to turn around and sell those because nobody can afford to put batteries, new batteries in them again.
10,000 to 30,000 to put a battery in. They're going to have very little resale value, and buses will have even less. So they're dumb on the surface. But everything you said was absolutely true. Natural gas burns extremely clean for real pollution. Almost none. Literally almost none at all. Now, it has emissions. It has that CO2 stuff that I'm exhaling right now. You know, and being an ex-politician, an ex-state senator, I've probably got 60,000 parts per million instead of the average 40,000 parts per million. But that's 100 times more than the ambient CO2 in the atmosphere. I mean, there's 8 billion of us, folks. We each exhale about 700 pounds of CO2 a year, and more if you're a runner or if you like do things in the bedroom a lot. I mean, really, it's really. So maybe we're the CO2 carbon they want to reduce, but that's also, they can't say that. But that goes all the way back to the control agenda and the stupidity of the stuff we're talking about. Because natural gas is extremely clean, but it has CO2 emissions, which they say is bad. That's why it's bad. Otherwise, it's Okay, going back to that question I asked earlier, the most abundant, important, impactful greenhouse gas is, do you remember, Charlie? I know I told you. It's water vapor. Water vapor is 50 times more abundant than CO2, but hard to, make people afraid of water vapor. You mean I can't take showers anymore? I can't create steam? So that goes, and they say, well, that really has nothing to do with it anyway. It's CO2 that makes the world warm. And then because the world is warmer, then it can hold more water vapor. So CO2 is really that drives everything, and it's that extra water vapor. And go, well, wait a minute now. And for a couple of years, I didn't get it. I was like, it bothered me. It kept me up at night. But then I realized, well, wait a minute. There's Death Valley. There's the Gobi Desert. There's the Sahara Desert. There's deserts all over the place. There's Australia, for goodness sakes. They're really hot and they're really dry. So this argument that because warm air holds more water vapor than cold air, it will, well, that's a lie. No, it doesn't. So that's just goofy. So water vapor is 50 times more abundant than CO2, 50 times, but it gets better. Remember methane, natural gas, natural gas. Water vapor is 11,000 times more abundant than that terrible greenhouse gas that warms the earth 80 times more than CO2. And it's all good. It's going to be terrible. We need to limit cows. 11,000 times more abundant. It gets even better. Nitrous oxide, that evil thing that comes from fertilizers. And never mind that the air is 80% nitrogen. No, don't matter. And the other 20% is oxygen. Wait a minute. We need to eliminate those two that are together. Nitrous oxide, fertilizers. Water vapor is 60,000 times more abundant than nitrous oxide in the atmosphere. 60,000 times. And they all do the same thing, folks. It isn't like there's a plastic cover over the whole earth or glass over the whole earth that keeps it warm like a greenhouse. No, that isn't what it is. What it is all these molecules are floating around, and there's a lot of distance between them. There's a lot of distance between them. The sun's energy comes into the earth, it hits the earth, and some of that gets blocked. Clouds block that. Water vapor and clouds block some of that. Hits the earth gets warm from the sun, mainly the land areas, not so much the oceans. The oceans don't get warm from the sun hardly at all. And they don't reflect a lot, but they evaporate a lot of water vapor when it's warm and sunny. They put a lot of water vapor, that greenhouse gas again, natural, nothing we can do about any of that. And when it hits the earth and it radiates back up into the air. And when it goes back up in the air, it's called IR's infrared. It's got a different wavelength than the sun's coming in. It goes up. And it hits these little molecules. It hits water molecules. It hits methane molecules. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those things where they have a whole bunch of mouse traps with a whole bunch of ping pong balls, and you throw one in and they go pop, 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 pop. It's that kind of concept. It hits one, it bounces off. It hits another one, bounces off. Hits another one, bounces off. So instead of going straight out into outer space where it's really cold, because warm things like to go where it's really cold, they want to equalize. Warm always wants to equalize with cold. Another one of those principles they ignore in the whole greenhouse thing. The thermal effect. There's laws in that area that just are warm things want to, if you don't believe me, go in the cold ocean and figure it out. Warm things want to warm cold things. So instead of going directly out to nowhere, it gets ping-ponged around for a long time. Some of that, when it reflects, comes back down, hits another one, goes back up. So it's slowed down before it gets out. That's what keeps us warm here. That's what keeps us warm here. Then the whole Earth has a magnetic field that holds all of our atmosphere in. And it actually expands and contracts a little bit. We really don't know, but it does. It's that we have a magnet inside the Earth that holds it in there. Thank goodness we have that. Sidelight facts. Both very, 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 very cold Mars and very, very, very warm Venus are 95% CO2, that evil molecule. 95% CO2. But one is like 700 degrees Venus, and one is like negative something, really cold. But they're both 95% CO2. How can that be? Venus is closer to the sun, so it gets more sun's energy. That's one part. The other part is they have a very, very, very dense atmosphere that holds everything in. It's very compressed. So if you didn't burn up in Venus and you went there, it would smush you like a bug because it's so dense. And that's what makes it so hot. And conversely, because we live in Goldilocks, we're on Goldilocks planet. Yet the lefties want to tell us we're not, or we're wrecking Goldilocks planet. It's
We're
so good here.
just right.
We should be celebrating it. And then out there on Mars, Mars has virtually no atmosphere. It's like the moon. There's hardly any molecules there. So when it gets that little bit of sun energy and it reflects back out, there's almost no molecules to hit because there's no real strong magnetic force to hold the atmosphere in. The basis, I just gave you the basis of all of kind of the climate scam and how they've twisted it. Folks, once you start to understand some of the basics, and the one last basic on weather, so you can get that, I guess it's maybe a little technical for a lot. They call them Hadley cells, but it has to do with the water evaporating from the sun and the ocean water mainly. Sun hits the ocean, the water comes up. Counterintuitive, at least it was to Frank, is that moist air floats up. I would think it'd be heavier and would come down, and you kind of see
like steam.
Yeah, steam goes up. But I guess maybe I was used to seeing fog, which kind of sits around the ground, but it goes up and it floats up. And then because warm things like to equalize with cold things, it starts floating towards the poles, towards North America, towards California and Wisconsin. When it floats up there, at some point, it meets cold air from the poles. When that cold and hot air hit, warm air holds a lot more moisture than cold air. It can hold a lot more moisture. And when it hits colder air, it rains. It precipitates out. That comes out. The greater the difference between warm and cold when those airs mix causes bad weather. More rain, more snow, more whatever. Or tornadoes and hurricanes, the more they mix. And because the earth is spinning, naturally it's spinning, there's always wind. This is always mixing. That's the basis of all of our weather. And that's all of climate, because all of what climate is just long-term weather. And even California, and I've lived there, California has different weather in the winter than it does in the spring and the summer and the fall. They have seasons, but not like seasons in Wisconsin. They suck in winter. But, that's how it is. It just is. So stop being frightened. Things are well in the climate world. You got crazy policies in California or just nutty wacko. We've talked about those. And we actually are living in a really, really great time. And we are producing enough food to feed everybody excellently. And, and I think RFK is onto something a little bit about, we're poisoning ourselves a bit. We should figure some of that stuff out, folks. But, there's nothing to worry about. Climate is great. And we have plenty of energy, too. That's another one of those, lies that they go into that, we'll run out of oil and coal. And and natural gas, and then we'll all die because we run
It
out. You got to
replenishes
stop it.
itself all the time. And if you don't mine it, if you don't take it out of the earth, it will make it to the surface. It
Well,
will bubble up. As
well,
where I grew up down in Bakersfield, we have sump holes. We have you got tar pits, down in
it
SoCal.
bubbles out of the sand in Santa Barbara, and I've been on the beach in California when I was a kid and got it on my feet because it bubbled all out. If you didn't,
Yep.
and now that they want to leave it in the ground, more of that's happening. It
Yes.
comes out, gets in the ocean, it comes waves back up, it sticks on your feet, it gets all around.
Yep.
Somebody will make a hit business out of scraping it off the sand and real harvesting it. But I mean, yeah, if you don't take it out of the ground, it will bubble up. It does, because the earth's really hot and it keeps pushing it out. But they're telling us on one hand, got to leave it in the earth because it's bad and harmful, and then
That's why they continue to call it fossil fuel, suggesting that, well, this all goes back to the dinosaurs decomposing and so on and so forth. So it's not renewable and it will run out, and that's just flat a lie, just a lie. Everything they do is a lie, and I blame so much of these scientists who are funded by these different organizations with a political agenda, who will, keep feeding the media, and the media is ultimately to blame for all of this. It always goes back to that for me, the wicked media, because I remember when going back a few decades, when I was in college, they were talking about, oh, there's holes in the ozone. There's holes in the ozone. The sun's going to fry us. It's going to burn us all up. We're all going to be dead in 10 years. It's always 10 years. Holes in the ozone. Then it turns out, well, that's kind of natural, and the Lord designed it that way. But no, they would discover, oh, there's a hole in the ozone over Australia. There's a hole in the ozone over California. This is the worst thing ever. And people freak out and they react accordingly, continuing to vote for people who are going to protect us from these terrible holes in the ozone, which, by the way, seem to have disappeared. I never hear anything about that anymore. And that was going to be the thing that was going to
because they
kill us
have
all.
disappeared. They have disappeared. There's no ozone hole, or it's very, very small.
Or there never were.
Well, and that's also another part of it. But it was an excuse to regulate us some more and scare some more people.
Exactly.
Hey, folks, get my book, Climate and Energy Lies. It's on the bottom of the screen. You'll learn a lot more about this. But importantly, it'll also tell you about the motivations and some of the other crazy stuff that the World Economic Forum has in mind for us, the climate controllers, in our politics, the graft, the grift, the reasons. We didn't touch on all of them here, folks. It'll also give you sources for the things we've talked about. There's no more there's no more hurricanes. There's no more tornadoes than there used to be. There's a lot more polar bears than there was. And the penguins are doing fine. I mean, those things are all covered in the book and with sources. So it isn't just Frank saying that they are there. This is made for people who are skeptical. I know that the name of the book might throw those skeptics off, or people who have an open mind. I mean, you're not going to convince the crazy lefties. They bought into the religion. They're angry about anybody who says, criticizes their religion. I mean, I can understand that. I guess it's a religion. And this is for people who are willing to think. And it's really important that we start talking to more people in the middle about this, or anyone who will listen, even if it's your kids or grandkids. And I know you run the risk of them cutting you out of your life because how could you possibly be a climate denier and polluting the young people's minds. But we need to do this, because if we don't, the West will fall. This is also part of China's plot. China is behind it. Why? They make 80% of the wind and solar in the world. It's going to be really interesting with these really high tariffs, because it can't. And then they screwed around the system because they were using literally slave labor. They have 1 million people locked up that they're using for slave labor. They were using it with coal energy. They get 56% of their country, all their energy from coal, and they have almost no environmental protection laws. They just dump.
They're still building coal power plants.
Yeah, they're still building hundreds of coal power plants. So is India. India gets 75% of all their energy from coal, and they're building hundreds, both of them. So we're being lied to about that they're all green leaders. It's just but they're low-cost providers of this stuff. So Trump put in some tariffs on them because they're screwing us. Biden put on some bigger ones. They're screwing us. So they just ship it to Vietnam, and Vietnam relabels it, maybe puts a screw or two on it and puts it in a different box and then ships it here. So, and Trump's not going to let that happen either. So it's going to be really interesting, because wind and solar are not cheaper. There's another travesty. The Inflation Causing Inflation Reduction Act, the Orwellian named Democrat, no Republican voted for it at all. So it's all on them, folks. It gives 50% subsidy for building wind and solar, half. Could you imagine if you built a new home and the government paid for half, and then gave you a little bit of kickback on all of your mortgage payments for the rest? That's what they're doing, folks. Half. And then it gets worse than this because you're screwed anyway. So they're cheap, they're cheap, they're cheap, they're cheap. Well, we're paying for half of them with our tax dollars and adding to our inflation. That's one part of it. The other part is your utility, the big utility system that spreads all that electricity around and buys it on our behalf. They use this thing called we pay clearing price. We pay take and pay price. They don't pay bid price. So wind bids cheap because they're half subsidized, solar bids cheap because they're half subsidized, and they're off and on again, depending on the weather. Then natural gas, because they're used more and more part-time because you're using more and more wind and solar, so they have to charge higher prices to pay for the billion-dollar plant. If you get that, if they were producing at a big level, they can charge less. And if they're producing a smaller amount because they got to shut off whenever there's wind and solar, they have to charge higher prices. So now all of the providers of electricity, and the first in line are wind and solar, that's by law and by regulation, they were going to take everything they produce, but we're going to pay everybody the same price and the highest price. So whatever natural gas or coal charge, everybody gets paid that price. There's no savings at all. In fact, it's a prescription for ever higher prices for electricity.
Yeah. It's a bait and switch. Sell them on the cheap and then do what you want once you get them to buy in.
And it comes from China. I mean, and it comes from China. So China's behind this. I'm sure that a lot of these green groups that sell us this garbage, who have literal hundreds of millions of dollars budgets, are getting fed from Chinese companies and the Chinese government itself. They are giving them money without a doubt to harm us, to do all the things we've talked about. So, folks, buy my book so you can talk to other people. And CharLee, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Anytime. I always love talking to you. Frank Lassay is fantastic. And when you were senator, I'm quite sure you probably talked this way openly and honestly. And you're in a very leftist state there in Wisconsin. That must have been tough. Must have been a tough time for you, I'd imagine.
Actually, it was when I spoke in the legislature, and I didn't speak all that often. They always listened because I had something to say, and I often was a little witty here and there, at least passionate. And we were actually a deeply purple state. And during the Scott Walker years, and I served in his administration, we had majorities, Republican majorities in both houses, and we didn't do what Washington Republicans seem to do. We have a little majority, so we just won't do anything. No, we pushed the envelope, and I really helped push the envelope, and I had the experience in both the House and then in the Senate. And then we had Governor Walker to sign these bills. We did so many good reforms, and I had a great relationship within our caucus, and even with the Democrats, those who are sensible enough to actually try to work on things we could agree on. But within our caucus, I was able to bridge the gap from the most conservative members, which I was when I was in the House. I was one of the very most conservative. And then in the Senate, I was lucky enough to have 3 or 4 who were more conservative than me. And I had a good relationship with all except for one who was really a Democrat. He was a rhino, Republican in name only. But there were 2 or 3 more moderate Republicans. So I could bridge the gap between them and understood enough about all of our government that we did some tremendous reforms. So actually, it was a great experience. I enjoyed it. Don't want to go back and do it again, but I enjoyed it. And it was a great lesson on how all this stuff works and how power works, and how governments and big businesses and small businesses, all of that, how that works and affects their lives. Because ultimately I did this because I want better lives for not only me, but for my kids, grandkids, all of ours, and for us to progress as a nation, so that we continue to be a strong, wonderful nation, and it bubbles up from the local governments through the state and the federal government. I had hoped and wanted to go to Washington as a representative or senator, ran for it a couple times, didn't happen. So here I am. I get to spread this word on most important issues: climate, energy, food supply. Can't get more basic and important than energy and food.
Buy his book, Climate and Energy Lies. Frank Lassay, Lassee. Frank Lassay. Look him up. You have a website too.
Yes, we do. Yes, I should forget that. Truth and Energy and Climate. You can find shorter articles on many of the things that I've talked about here. We continue to add them. You can sign up for our internet newsletter. That's been growing. And you get it once a week. And I cover 5 different articles typically to help you get informed about energy and climate issues. It's more energy heavy, but truth in energy and climate.com, truthandenergyandclimate.com, and our weekly newsletter. I highly recommend both. They're fun and people enjoy them.
You're fantastic. I always love talking to you. Thank you, my friend.
Hey, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me on, CharLee.
Absolutely. Anytime. Um, it's an honor and a privilege to get to have people like that on, get to talk to them. I'm just a good old boy from Bakersfield, but I grew up in a very oil dependent area, Bakersfield, Kern County, a lot of oil, a lot of ag. And that's what I grew up around all my life. My dad was in the oil business there too when I was younger. So I understand the importance of it. And I understand that there are alternatives. If you freak out over gasoline and that kind of a combustion engine because of the emissions, but there are diesel engines now. Volkswagen has pioneered a great engine, even though they took a lot of heat because of California emission standards and so on and so forth. And they were kind of fudging the numbers a little bit, maybe, but they paid for it dearly. But they have a diesel engine. There's almost zero emissions. It's fantastic and it's plentiful and it's easy to get out of the ground if you're in that business. So, but natural gas, telling you, man, butane, propane, whatever, fantastic, clean burning, easy to get, plentiful, and you can retrofit vehicles to burn that. While in California, they're forcing trucking companies and anybody who has a diesel engine to retrofit for their little carb attachment and all that stuff. There's no talk about natural gas. I don't get it. I don't understand why, other than they know for the most part, those of us who are independent minded, who want to be able to get in our vehicle and just go somewhere when we want, we got to go. You can't be giving us that kind of freedom, can you now? That's the attitude. So look up Frank Lasee, Lasee, and get his book, go to his website, and support this show. You can do that through givesendgo.com/do-not-talk, givesendgo.com/do-not-talk, or venmo.com/do-not-talk. If you can financially help this show stay on the air. There's more and more, as this show is growing, there's more and more costs that all of a sudden I'm incurring. And the website, just got the website going. That costs money and it's costs to maintain it. And that's charliesimons.com, just my name.com, charliesimons.com. And you'll find everything there as to how to support the show and how to get involved and even give me some show suggestions. There's a calendar on there where if you want to be on the show like Frank is, you go there and you pick the available time slots and I'll get back to you. And if it's something that I'm interested in, absolutely, that time is yours. And I'd be glad to put you on and hear what you have to say. That's how I learn. That's the best way to learn. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America bless God.